Hey guys, this is B Word here at the Bleach Brothers podcast. Just a friendly reminder that we are sponsored by Jerky Pro, and if you are a fan of jerky, make sure to go to www.jerky.pro. Use code BleachBros5 at checkout to get yourself a little bit of a discount. Both Jake and I are huge fans of jerky, and Jake working in the beef industry and me being just a fellow fat kid, we absolutely swear by Jerky Pro. You will not miss out by ordering Jerky Pro. Do not let some of the sticker shock you. There are free shipping options, multiple flavors, etc., so forth. If you do order Jerky Pro, make sure to use code BleachBros5 at checkout.
What's up, everyone? It's Mitch from the Two Guys in a Dart podcast, and I am joined by Bobby, the only guy I know who thinks about chili dogs while he's hanging out at your mom's house.
You damn right. And speaking of things I like to do on Sundays, nothing beats a brand new episode of Two Guys in a Dart.
Oh, tell me more, Daddy.
We sit down, discuss life, pop culture, entertainment, and much, much more.
So join us weekly as we take to the open road with a turkey burger and some cabbage rolls, right here on the Two Guys in a Dart podcast.
Sun's going down. It's about to get dusty.
The beans are warm.
What kind of beans are you eating?
We're eating beans.
Beans.
They're what's for dinner.
That's right, by the campfire. About to listen to us. Some Bleach Brothers.
Some Bleach Brothers.
Bleach Brothers podcast.
What the fuck is a Bleach Brothers podcast?
I don't know. Just get to the fucking hootenanny.
Hootenanny. Welcome into the Bleach Brothers podcast. This is B Word, and as usual, I am here with my good buddy Jake. Jake, I have to be honest, man. I am an old fuck. I have become an old fuck. My daughter turned 21 today, the day that we are recording. Makes me think, man, like, there's so many memories that went through. Like, I remember the news headlines that were taking place as we knew that she was going to be born, and it was the DC sniper. Like, I remember all of that sort of shit, you know, and all that sort of craziness. But to think that 21 years ago, I became a teenage father, and I'm here now, and I have a mortgage and a career and a truck and a bank account and all this sort of shit, and a daughter who's doing some good shit. I have to be honest. I just need a minute just to pat myself on the back, because that shouldn't have happened that way. Shouldn't have happened that way, dude.
No, it should. I remember when you announced your kid was happening. You had to live with me for a while.
Yeah.
I remember we took your giant Coke bottle, piggy bank.
We took it down to Saddle West.
We cashed it in. Yep. Got you. It was $708.
It was something like that, yeah. And the reason why we had to do that, because I was like $400 overdrawn in my bank account at the time.
Right.
So
we were trying to set you up, like, what's the next journey for B Word? So.
Exactly. So, but no, I took her out to sushi today for lunch. That was great. That was just her and I. Had a great conversation. Excellent time. She wanted to go to Chili's because she saw the El Presidente margarita, or the Presidente margarita, or whatever. Okay. She saw the commercial for that. She's like, I think I want to try that.
She got one. Marg?
Yeah, she got one. Didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. So we ended up getting her something else, and then we're taking her out this weekend, and she's going to go. Hopefully, not paint the town with vomit. But the chances of her potentially vomiting something are rather high, considering the group of people that I'm going to take her out with. So I'm going to be there to help protect her and her liver, while still allowing her to be punished. So
yeah, do enough damage. But
there's got to be enough damage.
Make the rule like I did for my sister when she graduated, because you've hung out with my sister. My sister can't handle a half a beer.
Right.
And the rule I said when my sister graduated college finally at like 30 is the minute you fall down, I take you home. And I let her take as many damn drinks as she wanted. And I actually regret that, because I had to carry her and my ex home at the time.
Oh,
all the way down. I was in Reno. Remember, my sister lived right near the wall, and I had to drag their asses all the way up from what's that Shamrock?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. That little bar, or They had the awful in there. Actually,
they did. That was where the diner was. Yeah. I drug them all the way up from there. It was a lot of fun.
I don't know if an awful is like a common thing you being in the food industry, is awful like a common thing, or is that like a territorial thing?
That's a territorial thing. That was their own thing. That was just an awful burger.
Well, there's a couple awful waffles here, so that's why I was asking. Like, so
no, that's a chain now. So they got bought out. So the diner franchised and then produced the off. So what happened is, and it's weird. This is a weird little thing. Sometimes a menu item can be so big that you can it's not franchise, but you can sell the proprietary item to a menu. So as you know, the Wall down the way, that old bar, bought it. The diner bought it. And everybody else around there bought it. And so you had, I think 3 Awful Waffles popped up, but it was based out of the diner originally. And the diner sold that recipe or that burger or whatever to everybody else.
So for somebody who's not familiar with what an awful waffle is, you being the chef, describe this awful waffle to people.
It's a big ass burger. I mean, now looking back on it, it's a hangover burger.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's all it is.
It's the epitome of if your mom told you In-N-Out was at home.
Yeah.
like when you're like, I want In-N-Out. Well, we got In-N-Out home. Like, and then you're drunk and then you have that with the garlic bun and the pound of garlic fries and the onion bun and all that. I mean, it's a big, nasty burger. That's
gross.
the only way to, how do you put it? I mean, here's the thing. In college, it was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody went there. You went there, you got the awful burger, you got the pound of fries. You're like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then as an adult, now I know why everybody looked at me weird when I'd go in there.
Yeah.
Like, because you remember all the adults were playing the slot machines and they weren't just angry because they were trying to gamble and we were all in line, like in their way. It was the fact that they're looking at this burger going, who was going to eat that?
Yeah, no kidding. I see. The thing is that this was the burger that you would go and get after a night of drinking downtown, and everybody got one. I don't think that anybody particularly liked it, but it hit that spot when you were drunk that was just like, oh my God, it's almost like Denny's pancakes or something. You know, it just completely hits the spot. But yeah, I think that In-N-Out at home is a very good description of that. But yeah, so tonight we're not talking about getting drunk and doing all these things unless it comes up, but we decided that we wanted to switch things up a little bit with our rundown and talk about something that we haven't talked about yet. And this is actually kind of exciting because here we are. We've got our movie countdowns going on right now. The next one's going to come out next week, but we're already ranking our movies. We're ranking our films. On the last one, we talked about Tombstone being one of the greatest Westerns of all time. And so in this one, we're going to talk about Westerns. We haven't talked about Westerns at all. We've talked a little bit about maybe like Clint Eastwood. I don't even know if we've touched on John Wayne, but Westerns were like a huge thing for me growing up, dude. When I was like, daytime television, when I was watching Bonanza as an example, and Bonanza was actually filmed, in Incline Village, which is like 20 minutes away from me. And the benefit to that is that they actually used to have the Bonanza, or I'm sorry, it was called the Ponderosa Ranch. The Ponderosa Ranch was located in Incline Village before somebody bought the property and is now using it as their own living quarters. But they used to have all these things like Little House on the Prairie themes and all this sort of stuff. It was really, really cool. But yeah, dude, we haven't talked a lot about Westerns. What were Westerns like growing up for you? Were they big in your house?
Oh yeah. So, I mean, especially we grew up in the country, essentially, right? We grew up in the.
Did you eat a bunch of peaches?
No, I didn't eat a bunch of peaches.
Oh, you weren't moving to the country and you're going to eat a bunch of peaches.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. See, the worst part is I went to the Bieber song.
Oh,
like that's where my brain went Bieber and you went the other way. But no, my grandpa is probably one of the biggest, my papa is one of the biggest John Wayne fans ever. He's got like murals all over his house of him. I like Westerns. I like the storyline. I like how they are. I like the slow pace. It's one of my favorite styles of movies. It's not just because it's one of those movies where it's predictable, but you don't care. But the buildup is so great.
Yeah.
Like the suspenseful buildup to what you know is going to happen is amazing. And like that's all that matters to me. It's like, somebody's dying, somebody's getting shot, somebody's riding a horse, it's dry, dusty, and desolate, and there's a hooker somewhere, but it's awesome. It's one of my favorite things.
It's almost like a white man's novella. Like, that it's going to be overacted. It's going to be dramatic. The storyline's going to be on point. There's going to be a love story of some kind whether it's with a hooker or whether it's with, Betty Joe down the dirt road somewhere. You've got pretty much, like, especially the old Westerns, it's pretty much a test of morality. You've got good versus bad. Everything within there has its own way of describing things. And you talk about John Wayne. John Wayne was a great Western actor. He was the every guy's man, right? That's why he was the Duke.
Right.
He was the guy that everybody wanted to be. But you look at some, even the spaghetti Westerns that came out shortly after he exited, and they still kind of had that basis of morality and, good versus bad. And I don't even want to say good versus evil, because it wasn't like evil. It was just like people were trying to do bad things. But the hero always won. And that was kind of one of the things that I thought about with Westerns, especially the old Westerns, is that the hero always won. And it probably wasn't until more modern times that we started to get where the villain was the winner within this, if that makes sense. So, but when it comes to Westerns, dude, what type of Westerns do you prefer? Do you prefer like films? Do you prefer series? Like, talk to me about your preference.
Typically a movie. I'm a big spaghetti Western fan. Sergio Leone was amazing. For people that don't know the reason they're called that, it was a big time where Europe was producing. I know you know this, B-word,
Yeah.
but for people that don't, they were producing a ton of Western films, and they added that. What is that style of music too? That was meow, meow, meow. Like that style was Sergio Leone that he made famous.
Well, and
that's why they called them spaghetti Westerns.
And a lot of them were actually filmed in Italy, which
exactly
has to do with the spaghetti. But spaghetti Westerns are awesome.
The arid desert. It's the perfect climate. It's the perfect place to film those. But I prefer movies over series. Mind you, there's a select few series that are amazing. Like for me, like it's one of those, like Lonesome Dove. I actually just recently rewatched that. It's on Tubi streaming right now for all the fans out there. But the funny thing was, just like you with it, my dad had it on VHS, and it was it was one of those ones that was long. And so to me, it was always a movie, even though I didn't know it was a series from like 1987, I believe.
Yeah,
I was 2 years old at the time.
Yeah.
But I watched it later in life, and I always thought it was a movie, and found out later in life it was a series. But it's Westerns lend themselves to be better, like Lonesome Dove, like a series that just ends. Like there's a beginning and an ending, because there's only so much you can do, right? I've tried to get into other ones, and I mean Yellowstone I'm into, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but other ones, it just they go on too long. So I'd rather a movie. I'd rather it just be quick and dirty and get it done with, if that makes sense. And that's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed the old school Westerns too, because they didn't need a happy ending. Like, the good guy needed to win, but like they could have like, I can't remember. There's one with Clint Eastwood where it's Penny, and I can't remember the full name of the movie, but at the end, he just looks at the woman and goes, "Well, that's why I'm a cowboy. Goodbye." And he just rides off and leaves her in the dust. And it's like amazing to me. It's like awesome. Like Where the Red Fern Grows, same thing. The dogs die, and the dad goes, "Well, thank God your dogs are dead. God bless us. Now we can move out of this house." And it's just like, that's Westerns. Like, it's just to the point. Like, who cares? That's life. Move fucking on. And I enjoy that.
So do you prefer dark and gritty Westerns or kind of campy?
Dark and gritty. Campy gets to the point where it's like, okay, it's fun to see a guy get shot and fall off a water tower so many times into a horse trough. But there is a point where it's like, you want some realism too. Like, you don't want it so over the top to where it's almost like, it almost feels like, I mean, for our generation, it's different, but when you watch Back to the Future 3, like that reminds me of every campy Western ever. Yeah. And like Back to the Future, I could put up with that. They're going back in time. It's funny. It's a joke. But when I see an actual movie like that, it's like, why? Like, you're just fucking with me. Don't do that.
Yeah, I would agree. I am also a fan of Westerns. I prefer more modern Westerns than the spaghetti Westerns, to be candid with you, but there's some really good Westerns that are out there that I'll still watch if they're on. I don't necessarily turn them on though. It's more or less, I found this channel on Roku, and I don't remember what it's called. I think it's called the Western Channel. But I was
sort of like the Hi-Ya channel.
Yeah, sort of like the Hi-Ya channel. And the thing about the Western channel is that they when you click into it, at least on my TV, when you click into it, it actually starts the movie at that point. So you're not hopping into the middle of it. And I was watching The Outlaw Josie Wales, which was just a great movie, and just reminiscing on that. But as far as the theme of the movie or the product goes, I really prefer the dark and gritty. I almost prefer the realism. I want there to be consequence. I want there to be something that's vital within the storyline that makes the story move, or at least, centers around that, the MacGuffin, if you will. But for me, dude, I prefer the movie, but I have to be honest, there are a couple series that I enjoy. We brought up Yellowstone. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. But there's also been some short series or some limited series that have come out. And when we start doing our rankings, I'll go ahead and start naming those, because if you haven't watched this one limited series in particular, I'm going to ask that you do. But Lonesome Dove, like you said, it was a television series originally. It was a limited run or a television movie or whatever it was. It was broken up into multiple nights. And correct me if I'm wrong, was Bret Hart in Lonesome Dove?
I believe he has a small part. Yes.
That threw me off when I was a kid, bro. I'm like, that's Bret fucking Hart. And the excellence of execution was in that. So, but it was way too long for me to watch as a kid. I finally watched it as an adult, and it's actually pretty good. I don't know that it's something that I'm going to watch routinely, but we kind of put out some. So every week we have social media posts that get some traction. And when I asked, do you prefer films or do you prefer series? Actually, Walt from the B-Raw podcast commented on one of our socials. I don't remember which one. And he says that Westerns are just mob movies.
Well, they are. They're mob movies for a different time. And mind you, I want to correct you before you move on. And that point, Bret Hart was in Lonesome Dove, but he was in the Lonesome Dove reboot.
Okay.
So there's two. I don't know. Yeah. So he was in the one from like 94, 95, not the original great one. So I wanted to.
I watched the original one, but I remember that he was on one of them, and I didn't. It's been a while since I've watched Lonesome Dove. So, but yeah, I mean, I agree that they are a mob movie, if you will. I think that you can really put a nice counterpoint in there and say, hey, you have the good versus bad. You have the struggles, if you will. You have the love story. You have all that sort of stuff. Still talking about all those themes. Hugely popular television series now is Yellowstone. It spawned a number of spinoffs at this point. You have 1883 and 1923, I believe, is the other one. Have you watched all of those? And if not, what have you watched?
No, I have not watched any of the other movie spinoff series, whatever. I still haven't even fully got through Yellowstone. You've pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. My family has. I'm finally getting through it. I'm really enjoying it. Mm-hmm. I'm still not caught up, but I mean, I could talk enough about it. But no, I have not watched anything else that they have done, because I'm one of those people. I need to finish Yellowstone and then go back and do the rest. And I understand some people might call me out of order, but I don't care. That's the way my brain's going to work. And that's the way I'm going to do it.
Right. I will say, so the writer of Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan, has actually done a number of different films that he's written on. So if you're a fan of Sons of Anarchy, he was in the first couple seasons. He was actually the assistant sheriff, Jacob Hale or whatever his name was, David Hale, whatever his name was. And he was a decent actor, but he's become a phenomenal writer. He's written Sicario. Yeah. He's written Hell or High Water, which was a great fucking film. That's also a Western movie. He's written Yellowstone. He's written 1883, 1923. Recently, I think you and I were actually talking about it too. Did you watch? It's a series on Paramount, and it's fantastic. I think Tulsa King. It's called Tulsa King, and they had the one series of it, and then of course everything went on break. So but that's where we're at. So going into Yellowstone, dude, what do you like about Yellowstone? What is it that's helping you move your fandom on this?
Character development. Modern TV is way better than any TV has ever been. The writing style, the grittiness. I mean, just also like I'm trying to describe how they develop characters these days. Like, because back in the day, right, you'd have an episode or you'd have a show. Mm-hmm. And like there'd be an episode comes out, and then it'd be like, hey, like, all right, Friends, for example, right? Like, let's do a whole episode around Joey, and then you learn about Joey, and you're like, oh, okay, I have an appreciation or a hatred for him now. They don't need to do that anymore. You can have an episode that is sort of around a character, but not so much to where it's like the episode feels like it caters to them, that they can still develop them.
Yeah.
And the writing is so well done with how the characters interact with each other that they don't even have to have screen time, and you don't forget them.
Yeah.
I think it's so it's like, because one of my other favorite shows was Succession or Billions, as you know, you watched that too.
I've watched Billions,
and there's so many like avenues they can go down where it doesn't just feel like here's the path. Here's the path we need to go, and here's how we need to write it. And we all know these people will fall in love, and we know this guy will ride a horse. We know this guy will buy the ranch. It's like, just do it. And holy shit, twists and turns, awesome. Not everything is good. I think they do a stellar job where they can do all these spinoffs and other creations, because there are shows that feel like you can write, right, and do well, but you can't do a spinoff. Like Game of Thrones to me was an amazing show, even though the ending sucked, right? They're doing all these spinoffs now, and I don't know how I feel about it. But with Yellowstone, I'm excited to watch the spinoffs because I can see how they are. Because also, it's a different time. Now, mind you, I loved House of Dragon, but you get what I mean? Like all the other stuff that might come out, I'm like, am I really excited for it? I have no idea.
Well, that's the big thing for me, man, because I ended up watching Yellowstone. I was late to the party, just like you were, and I decided that I would watch it. And I don't remember what platform I was initially watching it on. I think it was maybe Peacock or something. And I was in school at the time. And so it was one of those things that I can keep on the TV while I'm doing stuff, homework or whatever, and I can listen to it. I could pay attention to it, but it's not necessarily distracting me until I got involved in it. And I was like, holy shit, this story is pretty intense, because you have all the main characters. You have the dad, which is played by Kevin Costner. You have his sons when he first starts up, and then you have his daughter and her love interest, Rip, and, you know, everything to go with it. And it's basically about this land in Montana that's on the Yellowstone, and he has Yellowstone Ranch, and it's about them protecting their ranch. But what you don't understand is, at least initially, is how twisted it is, in a sense where they're doing all the right things for the land, if you will, but it's not obeying the laws. But then you also have that good old boy system that they've fostered for years and years, that you find out, and all this sort of stuff. But you really find that this family is likable, and you find that they have the storylines to be able to get you interested, like you said, in every single character. And what I found watching 1883 and 1923, 1883 is a one-shot series, limited series, which I think is awesome, because they had, 10 episodes or whatever it was, where you followed the origin, if you will, of this family and how they ultimately ended up acquiring the land. And then there's something at the very end of 1883 that I'm not going to spoil for anybody in case they haven't watched it, that tells you why the land is so important. And then fast forward to 1923, you continue on with the brother from 1883 of the main character and his sons that are now running this ranch. And now you're dealing with things like the Great Depression. You're dealing with things that have to deal with agriculture. You're dealing with all this sort of stuff. The newness of amenities like dishwashers and washers, clothes washers, and these things, and automobiles. And so you're finding that this is touching on a historical thing. But even though there's all that sort of stuff is happening, it's still enough to wrap me into the storyline. And where I talked about earlier about Westerns kind of being a novella, in a sense where novellas, soap operas, they have a ton of drama, Yellowstone has a shit ton of drama. I mean, there's always something going on. There's always an issue. But it's not one of those things where it was like, Thunder in Paradise with Hulk Hogan, where there's an issue and by the end of it, right, they've settled it. Or Baywatch, there's an issue and by the end of it, they've settled it. It's something that tends to take over the course of the series, almost like a Breaking Bad, almost like a Sons of Anarchy.
Well, it's a course of a season rather than a course of an episode.
Right.
And I think that's where modern TV has gotten better. It used to be you'd turn on an episode and you needed a beginning and an ending for each one.
Right.
And then we got into the point where it can be episodic. And
right.
then you can make it can be seasonal. Like you don't even need to finish the whole thing at the end of the season. I want to ask, and you can keep talking about Yellowstone, but like you got me thinking about series, right? Where would you put Firefly? Because it's a sci-fi Western.
Yes, it is a Western. It is 100% a Western.
I love it as a Western, but it's one of those things. It's a weird Western, right? It's like it's my kind of Western, but it's like it's one of those things like, holy shit. The problem I have is then you watch Serenity, the movie, like
It's
to
not a
finish it
Western.
out, and it doesn't feel like the same thing at all.
It's not
like,
a Western at all.
Not even the same.
So here's the issue that I have with Firefly. So you've spoiled one of my honorable mentions, because one of my honorable mentions was going to be Firefly. So now, it's a good thing I have enough honorable mentions. I'm going to swap that one out. So Firefly is an interesting series. For those of you that haven't watched it, it's really a great watch if you give it a chance. There was only one season. It was directed by the same guy who did the Avengers,
Joss
Whedon, and basically it was a space western. You can almost call Star Wars a space western, like all the Star Wars products, the Mandalorian, all that sort of stuff, to a certain extent. But this was a legitimate space western. So it had the feel of a western, it had the storytelling of a western, it had the episode feeling of westerns, etc. The problem with Firefly is that Fox, the television channel, thought it to be more appropriate to separate the episodes from their original airing intent.
Yeah, they aired them out of order.
They aired them out of order, and it lost the audience. So if you watch Firefly, and I'm sure you can watch, I haven't looked for it at all lately, but if you watch Firefly, you watch it in order, you're actually going to crave an additional season. And they never came out with another season because the audience scores, but they did come out with Serenity, which was the movie kind of trying to wrap things up. And I like Serenity, don't get me wrong, but it's something that I felt just wasn't in the same feeling.
Well, it's one of those things, like it just felt like, okay, we're going to do this for fan service to complete it.
Yeah.
And then there's always been the rumor like it's coming back. But it's funny because for me, somebody loaned it to me on DVD because I didn't watch it when it first came out.
I didn't either.
And somebody's like, hey, Jake, you got to check this out. And so I opened the DVD box, and knowing me, I read everything first. And I said, original air date. So I was literally annoying myself, taking discs out, putting discs in. I watched it as the original air date that it said. Because if you buy the original box set, it says air date episode 1. And I'm like, but that's episode 7 or whatever. And I went out of order and I went, what the fuck? And I called my friend. He goes, oh, no. Put in disc 1 and just watch from the beginning. I started over and I was like, oh, it's great. But I watched it as it aired on TV.
Right.
And I hated it because I was like, this is because it embodies the Civil War. It embodies having
the brown coats,
like everything was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's shiny. Dude, I love Firefly. But just to kind of talk about the series stuff here real quick, just to kind of wrap this up before we take a break. One of the things that I love about Yellowstone and the things that I appreciate about it is that 1883 is its own feel. 1923 is its own feel. Yellowstone's its own feel. The other spinoffs that are going to happen, I imagine, will have their own feel. But the one thing that I want to bring up is I appreciate series or limited series because I feel like you can get more story within that. I mean, we're fans of Marvel and stuff. So like when we start talking about like the Loki series as an example, that deserved to be a series as opposed to a movie. Or when we're talking about some other things, or like we've talked about the Justice League, how that probably would have been better as a limited series as opposed to the actual 4-hour film. So when it comes to this, one of the issues that I see with Yellowstone is that you have writer strikes, you have actor strikes, and then you've got the battle between Kevin Costner and Taylor Sheridan. At least that's what the headlines are telling me the battle is. And you don't, at this point, you don't know if Kevin Costner's in contract, out of contract, if they're going to finish the season. The season's supposed to be finished. It's supposed to be the last season, but it wasn't originally supposed to be the last season. So with all those conflicts happening there, do you just appreciate more the fact that you can start a story and end it rather than trying to continue it on with a series like this?
Yeah, because the one reason I love limited series is because you're not writing for ratings to continue. You're writing for a story.
Right.
So like a perfect example, and I know we're talking like all over the place, but like you're talking about how 1883 is its own thing.
Yeah.
It was written to start and finish, and they were writing to tell the story of that.
Right.
And where shows I feel get in trouble is when you start going, man, I wish it was only 5 seasons, or I wish it was only 3 seasons, because by season 6 it sucked. And that happens all the time because it feels like, okay, they know they got a hit, they know they're writing it, and the first typically it's seasons 1 through 3 is what they already have written, right?
Right.
It has this story arc that they've written towards, and they're doing it. And then it's like, oh crap, our ratings are so good, we need to continue. Okay, let's start writing shit to make it go on.
Right.
And sometimes I think they've sort of figured out in Hollywood, you don't always need it to go on.
Right.
Like you can finish it and you can do a spinoff or you can do a side story or you can do or make fucking something new for once. And I think that's why I like limited series. I like how Yellowstone's written. I actually wouldn't have a problem if it was sort of just is what it is. I think they did a good job. Like, because is it the greatest TV show I've ever watched? No, we could have a whole episode about that another time. Right. But it's good. And
no,
I mean, I'm not as far as you, but for where I'm at, I'm like, yeah, I could still be fine with it.
For modern television series, particularly in drama, it's phenomenal. Really, there's only one television series that I've watched one time and I will never watch it again, only because it was perfect when I watched it, and that was Breaking Bad. But I'm finishing Sons of Anarchy right now because I wanted to put a challenge out to myself, like, because Jax, if you have watched Sons of Anarchy, this will make sense. If you haven't, I'm sorry. Jax just goes from shit show to shit show in Sons of Anarchy, and I was curious, like, at what point in the series could you actually just stop the storyline and like Jax can get a happy ending? You know what I mean? And so I've been challenging myself, and I found one episode that potentially could have that, but the very next episode, his wife is leaving him. So it's one of those things that it's just like, okay, you know, like, but also with some of these series, like, you can tell where they may have written, you know, 2 series as an example, or 2 seasons, and then they just continue on with the storyline, and when you're watching it, you're like, oh shit, that's where it was originally supposed to end. And then the series greenlit another season, and vice versa. Like, you and I were talking about Heels recently on Stars. You introduced me to that, and Heels had a second season that ended on a cliffhanger, and then was just canceled. It's like, okay, so they were building up for another season, potentially another multiple seasons, and we'll never know the answer to that. So, but with that, man, let's take a real quick break and pay some bills, and we'll be right back. Sometimes people have a story to tell. It could be a story of triumph or a story of sorrow. However, it's their story. It's important to keep their story authentic, in their own words, and delivered in a delicate way. That's where Unfiltered Discussions podcast comes in. I'm Brian Howard. I talk with my guests about tough subjects and pivotal moments. I'd love for you to hear their stories. Subscribe to Unfiltered Discussions on your favorite podcast platform. Let's ensure their stories are heard.
Welcome back into the Bleach Brothers podcast. Western style, quick draw McGraw. What's up, B? We're double shot, double knockbill shot for everybody. One of my favorite Westerns has always been The Magnificent Seven. Now, yes, whether you like the reboot, I mean, which was decent, or the original, one of my favorite things to do that we've done on here and with other shows and stuff is casting.
Yep.
And for this one, it wasn't, hey, let's just go get real people and cast a new movie. Let's take fictional characters, superheroes, video game characters, whatever you want, and make them make a Magnificent Seven out of that.
So we're going to create our own Magnificent Seven out of fictional characters?
Out of fictional characters.
Fuck
so I was interested to see who you would build for your Magnificent Seven and why.
So obviously the 7 would include me. So I'm coming up with 6 additional characters, correct? Okay. So it would be me. So I'm going to go with Ace Ventura, because I feel like Ace Ventura would be that investigator that we would need to try to find where the bad guys are at. And he would do it in a way where it would like ruin us for a minute, but then all of a sudden it would come back in and it would salvage itself. So I'm going to go with that. I want to go with Bugs Bunny, because I feel like Bugs Bunny, especially when especially with Elmer Fudd, when he's battling Elmer Fudd, he's more witty than Elmer Fudd is, and I feel like he would just absolutely annoy the other person, almost like he would be my Jake in that case, where he would just come out and he would just be like, okay, this is what it is. I'm gonna go with Barney Stinson off of How I Met Your Mother, and the reason why I'm gonna go with Barney is because eventually we're gonna hit up a brothel. And for part of my 7 that might not be interested in puss, he's going to be able to kind of pave the way and make sure that everybody gets a little bit of tail for him. Ron Swanson off of Parks and Rec is going to be my next one, because I need somebody who just absolutely takes the law and he's just like, here's my permission slip. It's called the fucking, Declaration of Independence or whatever. And then I think that's I think I have one final one, and my one final one I'm going to go with John Wick, because in a shootout, I'm going to need somebody with some precision on there, and somebody who can at least take bullets and pull them out of themselves without dying, and just make sure that they just go off the rails. So that's going to be my Magnificent Seven.
I like that. I like that you went pro gun heavy. I like that you tried to make it like, I feel like I went very, very Western with this. But no, I like your list. I like your list. So for me, number one, now I didn't realize I was putting myself in it first. So I'll have a list with them. I'll have one extra character at the end, but my first one is Green Arrow.
Oh
DC
yeah.
Comics.
Okay.
I need somebody who can shoot.
Yeah.
I need somebody who can fit in a different timeline. I need somebody that, whether it's a bow and arrow or a gun, I got him as my back.
Okay.
I can't pick Hawkeye. I think Green Arrow is going to fit in better to the team. So I got him. My next one is Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I figured he would be my like Clint Eastwood best guy on the team. He's there to take no bullshit, be our main guy, right? The next one is Captain James West, Will Smith from Wild Wild West. I need the comedic aspect. I need a black guy. I need some color on the team, pun intended. I don't care. I just need him there. I think he is the epitome of everything you need on a team. Like, he rounds everything out. Like, you need a serious moment, he's there. He's going to smack you in the face for talking about his wife. You need somebody who can pull a gun, he can do it. You need somebody who can get us out of a jam, he can do it. This is where I go off the rails, B-word. My next one is Tatanka from the WWF.
Fuck yes, dude.
And the reason is, I feel like Tatanka never got his due. One of the worst wrestling matches ever was Shawn Michaels versus Tatanka. But I liked him. If he would have came out like during the 80s when it was like very, very, very campy, he would have been amazing. But he came out too late. I don't feel like he got his due. I'm putting him on my team, and he's finally getting his due.
I
in the
love
world.
that,
So,
though.
Tatanka's on my team. Here's the thing. If we're in a movie, he doesn't even have a speaking role. I don't need him to have a speaking role. He's just over there with his red mohawk. He's beating the shit out of people. He's shirtless. He's looking good. He's doing his thing. Ken from the Barbie movie, Ryan Gosling.
Oh, see, I thought you were going
the
Ken.
next one on my team.
I thought you were going to say Ken from Street Fighter, and I was like, I can
No.
see that. But Ken from the Barbie movie, dude. Okay.
I want a pink hat. You don't know if he's gay. Ripped dude who's the ladies' man in the brothel, who can quick draw McGraw, like do that bullshit. I need him on my team. I just want to hang out with Ryan Gosling. That's it. I just want to ride a horse next to him. I don't care. Hopefully he invites Margot Robbie, but I got him. There was a toy that came out in the early 90s for the Ninja Turtles, and it was Donatello, and it was the Wild West Wrangler Donatello. And he is on my team. And if you look this up, it is one of my favorite action figures. At first, I originally thought it was Raph, and I was wrong, so I had to re-look this up. But Sheriff Donnie's on my team, and I really need him there. I think it would just be cool to be with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. That was when all the toys were the rage. And then, of course, me. Now, if I didn't have me, the only other person I would have put on there was another DC character, and I feel like a cop-out for doing that because I went no Marvel. But it would have been Nightwing. And the reason is, Nightwing can still be bossed around. He's not the head honcho. He can be your sidekick, your best number two, kick the shit out of people, use weapons, but you know he's never going to step out of line. And I need a guy like that on my team. So my Magnificent Seven, Green Arrow, Tatanka, Ken from the Barbie movie, Donatello Wild West, Will Smith from Wild Wild West, and Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption.
I love all of that, though. That's so good. Let me give you one additional one, okay?
Okay.
So I don't know if you've ever seen the show Hell on Wheels, but Hell on Wheels was it was an AMC Western television show, and there was a side character, and basically the main character, Colin Bohannon, he is like the leader of the Union Pacific, I want to say Railroad or Transcontinental Railroad or whatever it was. He was the leader on the construction, if you will, and he had to go and communicate with the natives. And so he had to look for this guy named Jimmy Two Squaws. And Jimmy Two Squaws is a white dude. And the reason why they call him Jimmy Two Squaws is because he married two squaws. He was friends with the chief, and the chief had to marry his daughters. So Jimmy Two Squaws. dude is a fucking maniac. I love Jimmy Two Squaws. Jimmy Two Squaws is my favorite character in Hell on Wheels, bar none. Like he's phenomenal. So I would include Jimmy Two Squaws in on that. But no, good lists, dude. I mean, I love doing shit like that. All that fucking fictional fucking what ifs. I think that's really good. But let's get into the meat and potatoes. So we're gonna do the Everlasting movie reel. Might even be the Everlasting TV series, depending on what you pick. But we're gonna go top 5 westerns of all time with 2 honorable mentions. So
always the honorable mentions.
Always the honorable
have
mentions.
to have the 2.
So I already gave away an honorable mention, but I have more. So let's not do that. But
well, because one of yours was a series too. Are you counting series in this or just straight movies?
I am counting series in this. Yes.
Okay, I did not.
Yes. So if you would like to, by all means, go ahead. Otherwise, if you want to go strictly movies, then go strictly movies. But let's start with your 2 honorable mentions.
Cowboys and Aliens.
Okay.
Terrible movie, but it's one of those. It's like it gave me the best of both worlds. I got my side, like almost like Firefly, right? I got Olivia Wilde. Almost got the dream of seeing her naked. You got aliens coming down with UFOs to fight cowboys. I mean, what else do you want?
Right.
Great. Terrible movie, but for what it is, it's a great movie, if that makes sense.
Right.
So, second one's Quigley Down Under. An Australian Western.
Okay.
I got to look up who played it, but it's one of those ones. It was the actor made it famous. It came out in 1990. I remember my dad bought it. Tom Selleck's in it. He's the main character as Quigley. And it's an outback Australian Western film. And I've always loved that one. It's one of those, like it's a less known film. And it's not that great. So it's an honorable mention, but it's one of those, like, I'll never forget it. So.
Okay. So my honorable mentions, I already mentioned Firefly. That just so happened to come up earlier. I am going to go with Hell on Wheels. Phenomenal TV series. I really enjoyed that. The first 3 or 4 seasons were on point. That final season just kind of went off. It was just something that I felt like they should have ended it earlier. So I'm definitely going to include that on there. So my other honorable mention I'm going to go with is Blazing Saddles by Mel Brooks. I absolutely love that film. The best part about this film is that it's so offensive for anybody and everybody who watches it. But this is also back in the day where we appreciated that kind of humor. They could not remake this film, which I love because I love the original. And it's campy and it's over the top, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So that's going to wrap up my.
See, now it makes sense why you asked me if I like campy, because I like it's one of those ones. I don't consider it a Western. I consider it a comedy, which I know it's stupid. That's a cop out, right? But it's one of those things, like there are certain movies that transcend what they are. Like Spaceballs, I don't consider a sci-fi film. I consider it a comedy,
right?
Like, if that makes sense. Like I could show it to everybody. I can't show, like, I could show it to my wife, right? But my wife hates Star Wars, so it's like one of those things, like. It makes sense, but no, go ahead. I like those honorable mentions. Those are awesome.
So going into your top 5, I'm doing my top 5 a little different than I've done top 5s before. My top 5 is really going to be about watchability, the way that the movie made me feel, the likableness of the film, and then of course my own familiarity with it. I haven't watched all of the Westerns, if that makes sense. So I can't just say, some of the greatest Westerns ever. That I've never watched are on my list, because that would just be unfair of me. So how are you ranking this?
Like I always do, rewatchability, comfort for me, who I like to see. The biggest struggle I had, just being upfront, is do I put a Clint Eastwood movie or do I put a John Wayne movie on my list? And that was, I think, my biggest struggle. So I'll just start it. My number 5 is a John Wayne film, True Grit.
Okay,
I think film. That is one of the best Westerns ever made. And it really came down to that. And you know what I mean? It was like, who do I put? Because there, again, like we talk about things, there are 2 people that are also the epitome of Westerns for me.
Yeah.
But John Wayne will always beat Clint Eastwood.
So you don't have a Clint Eastwood film on your top 5?
I don't. No.
Wow. Good for you. Okay. That's interesting. You're going to hate my number 5. My number 5 is a movie that stars Mel Gibson and James Garner. It's the movie Maverick.
That's a great film. I don't hate that. I love that fucking movie. It just doesn't make my list.
That's my top 5, dude. That's one. So that one is one that I used to watch. Like, there's always these movies that we used to watch that just like spur up nostalgia a little bit. this movie was one that, like, if I was homesick from school, or if it was summertime and I wasn't like hanging out with my friends or whatever, I would watch Maverick, and I just loved everything about it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. So yeah, Maverick made my number 5.
See, that's funny because my next one's a nostalgic film.
Okay.
And it's a terrible. I'm going to just say this now. Everybody else listening is going to hate me for this, but I love The Quick and the Dead.
Oh,
I love that terrible campy. Like I say campy just because of the sense of it's just bad. It's not campy like in the way where it's trying to be funny, like the fake blood, like the over the top, like let's burn somebody in a church, and the guy's dad has a shootout with him, and Leonardo DiCaprio's in there trying to pick up every chick, and but it's one of those. It's the nostalgic film for me. I remember seeing that when I was like in first grade or something like that, and I thought it was so fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stop watching that movie. So for me, that's the throw on. Like, okay, I know it's not good, but I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to eat some chocolate covered gummy bears. I'm going to pop some popcorn. I'm going to sit down with a Coke, and I'm going to watch this movie. And everybody else in the room is going to hate me for it, but I don't care. I'm putting it on.
That fits you though. That movie fits you. Good for you, man. So my next film is the original Magnificent Seven. I do have to throw it out and say that I really enjoyed the remake. I really enjoyed the remake for what it was. But the original Magnificent Seven with Steve McQueen and James Coburn, and it was a great Western film, man. I mean, it just, you have this storyline that you bring people from different walks of life or from different backgrounds or whatever, and they fight together. And I love the togetherness of it, but I love the storyline. I love the storytelling of it. I mean, it was great acting for the time. I love it, dude. Magnificent Seven. That's my number 4.
I'm glad that it was that because what's the worst Western remake of all time in your opinion?
Wild Wild West.
See, mine's 3:10 to Yuma.
I've never seen the remake. Never seen the remake at all.
See, I like slow, boring fucking movies, okay?
Yeah.
But it's slow. It's one of those movies. I was watching one the other night. I can't remember what it was, but where my wife walked in and I was about 20 minutes in. And she's like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. There's been so much dialogue. Like, it's like, where people are talking in a movie, but you have no idea what the fuck's happening. And all you're waiting for is the next scene. So you're like, oh, somebody got shot. Cool. And then, oh, this happened. Or, oh, like it's one of those movies where you don't need to know any of the dialogue. You just need to see the sequences so you can move on with your life. Like that's 3:10 to Yuma for me. I was also proud of myself because for number 3, originally I was going to put a cartoon.
Okay.
And I really had to stop myself.
What cartoon were you going to put on?
For once. Fievel Goes West.
See, I knew that you were going to, yes, I knew that's what it was going to be.
But I didn't do it because I rewatched it. And as a kid, I remember people saying, especially Kevin Fry was the big one where he thought it was the greatest. He thought it was way better than the original. Because that was that when arguments started happening first, like first and second grade, like Ninja Turtles 2, which one's better, first or the second? American Tail, Fievel Goes West or the original, which one? And I realized Fievel Goes West isn't really that good at all. Mind you, I'm sitting here talking about a fucking cartoon. It's not even on my list, but I just wanted to bring that up. My next one is Django Unchained.
It's a great one.
I just think I love Quentin Tarantino.
Yep.
The writing's great. I think the characters in it are unforgettable. It's just a stellar film all around. It's never going to be number 1, but it's one of those ones I could throw it on and I'm happy if it's on, if that makes sense.
We finally, after how many of these, ended up with one ranked the exact same on the same list. Django Unchained.
I thought you were going to say Fievel Goes West.
No. Django Unchained is especially with the modern Westerns, just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. This was one. So when you hear my next 2, because obviously it's going to be, number 2 and number 1. When you hear my next 2, you're going to understand where I'm at, I think. But this one was phenomenal. I too did not have I actually didn't have a John Wayne or a Clint Eastwood on here. I wanted to put the shootist, John Wayne, as number 3. The reason why is because it was shot in Carson City, Nevada. I live in Carson City, Nevada. Like there's a lot of the shootist house actually shows the shootist every once in a while. Like the house is still up and erected and the whole works. But I had a hard time trying to put those on. And I think the reason why is not to take anything away from Clint Eastwood or John Wayne. Those movies just don't necessarily resonate with me in the same way that these ones do. if that makes sense. So yeah, Django Unchained's my number 3. I'm gonna skip you. I'm gonna go to number 2. My number 2 is a series. It was I want to say it was a Netflix original series. Okay. It was called Godless. I think it's called Godless.
Godless. Yeah, I know.
Did you watch Godless?
No.
Okay. Godless, I think, is a 4-episode limited series. Fucking phenomenal. Phenomenal. Jeff Daniels, his best role ever. And I love Jeff Daniels. Jeff Daniels is a great actor.
Best role ever?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. 100%.
I'm going to watch this now and challenge
That's
this,
fine.
I don't believe you.
I don't think that you're going to have the same opinion, but it's a great miniseries. It's a great limited series. Godless is just a phenomenal series. And again, I'm repeating myself here, but the acting is stellar. The storyline is fantastic. The character arcs and the buildup is phenomenal. And then when you get to the actual shootouts and stuff, they're great. It's done very, very well. Godless, I've watched a handful of times, and it's stellar, dude. It's absolutely stellar. I would recommend anybody to watch Godless.
Okay. I'll check it out. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to argue with you later. I bet it's a good series. I just don't know if it's Jeff Daniels' greatest role.
So what would you say Jeff Daniels' greatest role is?
Newsroom.
I think I would agree with you that he's up there in the Newsroom. I would say the Newsroom is number 2 to Godless.
As long as you don't say Dumb and Dumber, I'll give you that.
No. I mean, he does great in Dumb and Dumber, but it's not his best role.
Yeah. No. But so this is where it got hard, because there's one of my favorite movies of all time I left off here. But the next one is Dances with Wolves.
It's a great one.
I love that movie. I could watch that movie all day. It's great. It's great storytelling at its best.
Yep.
That was, I think, the turn for 90s movies.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, where you had episodic like movies in the sense where it was long, drawn out, and done so well, and like actual realism. It got out of like, hey, let's dub all the Indians or make them speak fluent fucking English, and like nobody cares and it's not different. It was like gritty, down to earth, real, heartfelt, like every little thing. Like you just the scene with him and Two Socks, the fucking wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's where, but just him describing it in his journal is amazing to me. The narration's awesome. I know it was Kevin Costner's. What is his directorial debut too?
Yeah, he wrote it. I want to say he co-wrote it, but he he directed it and he starred in it, and it's a great film, dude. Great film. What do you got? My number 1 is Tombstone.
We're the same again.
It is that's where it was hard, dude, because I wanted to put like Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood on the list, or I wanted to put The Outlaw Josie Wales on the list, or I wanted to put The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or Shane. Is it called Shane? I think that's the one that was called.
As long as you don't put Jonah Hex on there, we're fine.
Yeah, no. But yeah, like there's so many good Western films that I wanted to at least mention, but I couldn't get them on the list. Tombstone's number 1, man. I mean, we talked about it in our last ranking episode. Tombstone to me is the best Western ever created, and people can argue with that. But I think for our generation, I don't think we're arguing about that. I think it is the best one.
That was the point I was going to make. It's a generational thing, I think. For us growing up, that was the epitome of what a Western is, what a Western could be, what a Western became. And it towed the line of who do you like? Right. The good guys or the bad guys? And are the good guys really always good guys, or are they partly bad? Right. And like, do you sometimes side the other way like that? But even just like the scene where, I can't remember, is it Curly Bill, that fucking dirty little fucking bulldog of a man? Curly Bill! Where he like, he turncoats all the damn time. And that was one of the first movies I remember where I just wanted to see somebody get killed so bad. Yeah. I was like, just beat the living shit out of that dude, because that guy's fucking annoying. But
you also talk about casting in the film. Like, the cast is phenomenal. Like, you don't have movies where that cast is
Sam
so
Elliott,
on point.
Bill Paxton, Kurt Russell,
Val Kilmer. Like, it's Val Kilmer's best role, and he had like 20 minutes worth of fucking film time. Like, right. He was Doc Holliday. Like, when I think Doc Holliday, I think Val Kilmer 100%. Mm-hmm. But I've seen Val Kilmer in like 20 different products, and I never think about him in any other film, including Batman, other than Doc Holliday. Like, he's always going to be Doc Holliday to me.
to me, he was always Iceman or he was Doc Holliday.
Yeah, well, Iceman,
Like that's
yeah.
it though.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Those are who he is.
Yeah.
Like he was never, it was in that time we were kids too, where you remembered people as characters rather than their actual selves.
Exactly.
And yeah, that for that movie, everybody that played in that movie was that character for me for a long time. So I agree with you. Best Western ever, great storytelling, great cast, great build up. And it showcased what our generation wanted to see.
What's your favorite scene from Tombstone?
Where he's playing poker, Val Kilmer, and he does he twirls the cup like he's quick drawing against the guy.
Yeah.
That, because here's the thing, I'm a shit talker. Okay, I know everybody knows that. Like if we were on a team, that would have been me. B-word, the guy who's gonna die early, who's getting drunk too much and wants to fight everybody and just talk shit all night and go get a girl upstairs. Like that's who I was.
Yeah.
Like you're a more straight and narrow. You're Kurt Russell to me. Like you're the guy who's gonna wear the badge. Yeah, go out and get it done.
It's one of my favorite ones is when they're in the shootout and Kurt Russell's like, no, and he's like,
oh, I hate
that scene. No,
and he's walking across the river. That's the worst.
That is so funny to me.
That's the worst scene. It's so badly acted. Like whenever that scene comes on, I want to eat cottage cheese and melon and just turn it off. It just makes me just ugh. Like it's because here I don't want to eat cottage cheese and melon. That's what it makes me think of, though. It's just like I'm just gonna sit down with a bowl of this and be miserable. Like when that scene comes on, I just want to fast forward. It's horrible. I hate that scene because it's so bad.
So you're a quick draw guy. Let me throw some names at you, and I want you to tell me if you can outdraw them. Okay.
Okay.
Gnome.
Yes.
Why?
He thinks he's going to be faster with the short reach, and I'm actually not even going to fully pull it. I'm just going to twist my fucking my holster and shoot him.
Trash can tabby.
I don't have to aim as high either. I don't have to aim as high. He's gonna have to come all the way up. I'm gonna have to aim like it's like aiming for my own kneecaps.
Trash can tabby.
Yeah, I could beat it. Yeah, that's easy.
Fuck. Aaron from I Had to Say It.
No.
I think Aaron would outdraw anybody.
I think Aaron's that guy. He's like sneaky good. He's like that guy that you go to the bar and you're like, hey, let's have like 20 beers. And he's 20 in and you're like falling over and he's still fine. Like I could see him like pulling double 6 shooters and he'll beat me. Yeah. Aaron's got me.
All right. Last one for me. Matt from the Bromigos podcast.
I think it's a draw and we both miss. I think we build it up in our head and we get nervous and we get sweaty and we both pull and then we shoot the wall behind us.
That makes sense.
So
that makes sense. You guys are both good blowing your wad.
I got some for you then. All right. The Stoned.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna beat Stoned, and not because I believe that I could outdraw him. He's just so inebriated that like his reflexes are gonna be bad. Like if he was sober, he could probably outdraw me. But the fact that he's just inebriated, I've got that 100%.
Okay. Tyler from the Inner Idiot.
Oh, Tyler's got me. Me because he's already 3 thoughts ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
he shot you from behind. Like he didn't play by the rules.
His brain just works faster than normal people, and so he's already shot me. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. You're a better friend with him than me, but B Raw podcast.
Oh, Walt from the B Raw. I think that's one of those ones that we'd probably draw. We'd probably draw. Like I think we would actually shoot each other, and we'd both be like bleeding out, and it'd be like that scene from that one WWE match where it's like the Undertaker and Kane, and like the Undertaker has to tap him on the hand, and next thing you know, they both get up.
Last one. Well, then I maybe, but J Rob from the Cover Zero.
Dude, J Rob's got me beat 100%.
He looks like he could be like a fucking star, like a cowboy hat, like shows up, like he would be on my Magnificent Seven.
It would be like if Drake was a cowboy, he would just absolutely just sit there and just do that. But
I could see that. I think who beats us all though is Gunner. Gunner.
Oh yeah,
Gunner would win.
The El Presidente.
El Presidente.
And speaking of that, hey Gunner, what do you got for me?
Thanks for the dirt talk. Come back and get sanitized.
This is Jake from the Bleach Bros podcast, and thank you for listening to today's episode. I want to bring to your attention our Linktree. Visit Linktree/Bleach Bros podcast for access to all of our socials, merch, and streaming sites. Linktree is linktr.ee/Bleach Bros podcast, all one word. And if you enjoy our content, make sure to give us a like, give us a review on whatever platform you are listening on, and also invite your friends.